a close look at the letter from Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, which authorizes Robert Mueller as special counsel. Rosenstein gives Mueller the go-ahead to look not only into possible ties between Russia and the Trump campaign, but also, quote, any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation. That search has already led the FBI to zero in on 2 Trump aides, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and former campaign chairman Paul Manafort. Both men have been the subject of multiple grand jury subpoenas and records requests in connection with the investigation. But where else might any matters that arose or may arise lead Mueller now that he's in charge? After all, Ken Starr, the independent counsel who hounded Bill Clinton in the 1990s, started out with an investigation into Whitewater. But we all know how that ended with Monica Lewinsky and impeachment. So what new revelations might Mueller's search for answers expose about Donald Trump? Joining me now are Daily Beast senior editor Harry Siegel, journalist Sarah Kendzior, and Scott Dworkin, senior advisor of the Democratic Coalition Against Trump. Thank you all for being here. And Harry, I'm going to start with you because Donald Trump, emerges out of New York from this sort of real estate world that's pretty murky. Manafort's played in it too. If you could sort of use your lurid imagination and speculate, what might be underneath this sort of curtains as the Attorney General of New York begins to look into him?
Well, the Attorney General of New York has some exceptional investigative powers and has been gunning for Trump for a long time.
He's a Democrat, big time.
He is a Democrat, and he's Eric Schneiderman, and he's looking. And step away from Russia for a minute, or Russia in the election. Donald Trump is in the real estate business, which is filled with LLCs, dark buried money.
Yep.
At a certain point, the American banks cut him off because he keeps burning them, like Trump tends to burn people. And he has all sorts of lines of credit that maybe some of them go back to Russia. And a lot of that's been looked into. Paul Manafort, of course, who's getting investigated now for his own very complicated real estate dealings that seem to involve surprise mortgages that maybe weren't paid off, and LLCs to maybe hide money in property, Scrooge McDuck style. So instead of someone living there, the cash is just there. You know, he had a place in Trump Tower, and that was one of his ins with the Donald. So there's just all of these nooks and crannies and dark corners that somebody with real investigative powers has and subpoena power, potentially can start turning over rocks and see what crawls out.
Yeah, and speaking of turning over rocks, Scott Dworkin, you've been doing a lot of that, and you do have this sort of residents of Trump Tower cavalcade of sort of almost cartoonish villains, right, that are associated directly with Donald Trump. Can you, in a very short order, sort of unpack what are some of the names people should be looking for that could turn up in these investigations?
I think that Mike Flynn obviously is most likely going to head to prison. You have Paul Manafort, who's in a lot of trouble. I think that Michael Cohen is going to face a lot of scrutiny as well. We found out that
that's Trump's lawyer.
Yes, that's Trump's attorney. He also goes by the name Michael Hacking, but that was related to his taxi cab company, so he has 2 names. I think that the main point is that his family needs to be implicated in this because they were behind a lot of these deals. So you have Eric and Don Jr., but most importantly, you have Ivanka and Jared. I think those are the 2 key people that need to be implicated now in regards to the whole Trump-Russia probe.
And, Sarah, one of the sort of things about Donald Trump that people learned when he ran for president is that he does have this long-standing kind of affinity for all things Russia. He's done a lot of business there. His son bragged about a lot of their business coming from Russia. A lot of their condos were by either Russian LLCs or Russian humans, his, $90 million sale of a house in Florida. But there is this sense in which he kind of seems to at least admire, if not emulate, Russian oligarchs. Is this sort of happenstance and coincidence that he seems to sort of behave in ways that they do?
I don't think it's coincidence. I think he has a natural affinity because Russian oligarchs can operate above the law. And throughout Trump's life, that is what he's tried to do. He's surrounded himself with people who have insight into legal loopholes he could exploit for his own corrupt ventures. And I think he sees in Russia people that are able to do this at a much higher level because they lack the constraints, and the legal processes that we have in the U.S. As president, I think he sees himself as above the law. I think he's using his executive position to further these kind of financial transactions, and he's also directly implicated in Russian interaction that may be illegal, whether himself or through people like Manafort, Flynn, Page, and the various actors that we've just named.
And Harry, as an investigative journalist, and you also do a lot of great work here for the Daily News. The sort of New York weird world. There were a couple of headlines that I think would get anybody like you sort of intrigued. One of them was the Associated Press headline that Trump's attorney didn't want him to sign his financial disclosure forms, which would have certified them as true. That was weird. And then you have on Friday, Politico comes out with this piece that Trump told aides that firing Michael Flynn was a mistake. It's left the White House officials perplexed. Why is Trump so determined to defend a man at the center of a federal investigation that's damaging his administration, the man he's accused of lying to his vice president, someone he apparently is still talking to and telling him to stay strong?
Well, did he lie to the vice president, or is that the alibi story? Because these guys don't mean a lot of the things they say. But with Flynn, there's clearly this "I can't quit you, babe" element to this, and it's incredible how much more loyal he's been to Mike Flynn than to his 3 wives.
Yeah.
But I think the bottom line here with Trump, which is almost always simpler and less conspiratorial than you need to start with, if you're not trying to prove something in court, is he doesn't like to say he was wrong, and he wants to dance with them that brung him. And Flynn was a zealot and a convert very early on. The two of them were close. He doesn't like these other generals like McMaster's who lecture him and say a bunch of stuff and are boring.
Yeah.
And here was a cool guy. He said, "Lock her up." He said, "That's right. That's right. Somebody should."
Yeah.
That's his sort of fella. And now Flynn's gone. All these investigations are rolling downhill.
Yeah.
And he's saying, I should never have done that. I was right to start with. And the people around him are saying, oh, my God, this is going to be a very, very long stretch trying to speak for this man.
Trying to speak for this man. And, Scott, there's also the point of, Flynn might know some things, right?
I think that, one of the things that's key here is, from our timeline, we believe through our investigations that Trump is the one who made the introduction for Flynn to the Russians in the first place. And I think that fact, when that comes out, that's very troublesome, because then it's Trump that was involved in the first place in linking Flynn up. And I think that Flynn has been the eyes and ears for Trump in Russia until he was fired. And I think also, of course, his son was also over there in Russia during that Russia Today conference. So this is going to spin out of control very, very quickly in regards to Flynn. I don't think that he's going to run out of stories to tell about Trump.
Okay, well, we are out of time. Unfortunately, we are out of time. We can do this all day. Harry Siegel, Sarah Kendzior, Scott Dworkin, thank you very much. Scrooge McDuck makes its first appearance on the AM Joy Show, thanks to Harry. And still to come, Trump takes his road show to Saudi Arabia. Stay with us.